The ballroom had been filled with laughter, champagne, and the polished applause of powerful people, until a disabled little girl slowly pushed herself away from her wheelchair, reached toward a quiet stranger standing near the doors, and asked him to dance. The billionaire mother watching from across the room froze because she knew her daughter had not asked anyone to dance in 3 years. But what terrified her even more was the man her daughter had chosen. He was a single father wearing a simple navy suit, and beneath the calm expression on his face was a past that had taught him exactly how to recognize pain. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, because sometimes the people who seem the strongest are secretly fighting battles nobody can see. The afternoon charity gala at the Hawthorne Children's Rehabilitation Center was supposed to be the safest place in the world for 12-year-old Wren Calder. Her mother, Celeste Calder, had spent millions making sure of that. Celeste was one of America's most successful technology billionaires, a woman whose name appeared on business magazines, whose company owned buildings in 3 cities, and whose signature could move markets before lunch. But none of that mattered when she looked at her daughter. Wren had been born with a neurological condition that severely affected her mobility and coordination. She could stand with assistance, take a few uncertain steps, and move her hands with effort, but walking independently had always remained beyond her reach. 3 years earlier, after a frightening medical setback, Wren had stopped participating in public events altogether. She had stopped dancing, stopped laughing freely, and slowly stopped believing that her body could ever belong to her. Celeste responded the only way she knew how. She built walls around her daughter so thick that nothing could hurt her again. That afternoon, Wren sat beside the dance floor wearing a pale blue dress and silver shoes she had chosen herself. Celeste had arranged everything perfectly. There were doctors nearby, private nurses, security personnel, carefully selected guests, and a rehabilitation specialist who had been paid to make sure Wren remained comfortable. Yet despite all the planning, Wren looked terribly alone. She watched other children moving across the polished floor with their parents while her fingers tightened around the wheels of her chair. Celeste noticed but hesitated. She had learned to fear those moments. Whenever Wren looked at other children, Celeste saw disappointment waiting behind her eyes. She wanted to protect her daughter from that disappointment more than she wanted anything in the world. Then Wren noticed a man standing near the entrance. His name was Callum Reed, 38 years old, a single father raising his 8-year-old daughter, Marin. He had been invited because the organization was honoring veterans who had quietly supported disabled children after leaving military service. Callum was not there for recognition. He had spent the morning helping Marin paint small wooden stars that were being sold to raise money for therapy programs. His suit was inexpensive compared with the designer clothing around him, and there was nothing flashy about him. But there was something in the way he stood, alert without looking nervous, observant without appearing intrusive. Years in the Navy SEALs had trained him to notice details most people missed. He noticed the child whose wheelchair brake was loose. He noticed the elderly donor who nearly slipped near the refreshment table. He noticed the exhausted mother rubbing her wrists because she had been carrying her son all morning. Most importantly, he noticed Wren. He did not stare at her wheelchair. He looked at her face. That small difference mattered. Wren watched Callum as he knelt beside another child who had dropped a wooden star. He helped the boy pick it up, brushed dust from its surface, and smiled as though the little mistake had been important enough to deserve his full attention. Wren watched for several minutes. Then something unexpected happened. She pushed the wheels of her chair forward. Celeste saw her daughter moving toward the man and immediately started walking after her. But before she could reach them, Wren stopped in front of Callum. She looked up at him, then toward the dance floor, and lifted one trembling hand. She wanted him to dance with her. The room seemed to lose its sound. Celeste froze. Wren had not danced since the accident that had changed the course of her childhood. She had refused music therapy. She had rejected physical therapy sessions involving rhythm. She had even stopped watching old videos of herself dancing because they reminded her of a body she could no longer command. Yet now she was asking a complete stranger to dance. Callum looked at her, then at the wheelchair, and immediately understood that she was not asking him to dance instead of her. She was asking him to dance with her. He lowered himself to one knee. He did not touch the wheelchair without permission. He did not rush. He simply held out his hand and waited. Ren placed her hand in his. Callum helped her stand. A collective gasp moved through the ballroom as Ren's legs trembled beneath her. Celeste's heart slammed against her ribs. Every instinct told her to rush forward, but she stopped when she saw Callum's expression. There was no pity there. No fear. No desperate attempt to make Ren look brave. There was only patience. Ren took one tiny step. Then another. Callum moved with her, matching every uncertain movement. When her knees weakened, he steadied her without making the struggle obvious. When she nearly lost balance, he adjusted his stance instantly. Slowly, impossibly, Ren began to move. She was dancing. Not perfectly. Not gracefully. But she was dancing. Celeste covered her mouth as tears filled her eyes. For the first time in years, her daughter was smiling without being asked to. The applause that followed was gentle at first, then overwhelming. But Callum did not look at the crowd. He looked only at Ren. And Ren looked at him as if he had just shown her a door she thought had been permanently locked. After the dance, Celeste approached him with gratitude mixed with suspicion. She thanked him, but her guarded expression made it clear that she wanted to know who he was. Callum simply explained that he was a former Navy SEAL, now working as a security consultant while raising his daughter alone. He had lost his wife several years earlier after a sudden illness, and since then, he had learned that parenting was less about fixing pain and more about teaching a child that pain did not have to define the rest of their life. Celeste listened silently. The words struck somewhere deep. She had spent years trying to fix Ren. Callum had spent years learning how to live beside grief. The difference frightened her. Over the following weeks, Callum began volunteering at the rehabilitation center. He never accepted special treatment from Celeste, never asked for money, and never behaved differently around Ren because she was the daughter of a billionaire. He treated her exactly as he treated Marin. He encouraged her when she succeeded and respected her when she became frustrated. He never promised that she would walk. He never told her that everything would magically become easy. Instead, he taught her something much more valuable, that progress did not have to look impressive to be real. Ren began attending therapy again. She started practicing standing. Then stepping. Then dancing. Celeste watched from a distance, terrified that hope might hurt her daughter more than hopelessness ever had. Her fear became an invisible wall between her and Callum. She admired him, trusted him with Ren, and yet refused to let herself become emotionally close to him. Callum noticed. He also understood why. One afternoon, after a therapy session, Ren became frustrated when she could not complete a movement she had performed successfully the previous day. She cried and pushed away the walker. Celeste immediately stepped forward to comfort her, but Ren turned away. Callum remained nearby without interfering. After several minutes, Ren finally looked toward him. He walked over and sat on the floor beside her. He did not tell her to stop crying. He did not tell her to be strong. He simply stayed. That was when Celeste realized something painful. Her daughter had spent years surrounded by people who were trying desperately to make her happy. But Callum was the first person who seemed willing to sit beside her when she was unhappy and let her know that she did not have to perform courage for anyone. Celeste began changing. She stopped making every decision for Ren. She allowed her daughter to choose her therapy schedule, her clothes, her music, even whether she wanted visitors. For the first time, she began treating Ren not as someone fragile who needed constant protection, but as a young person who deserved the freedom to take risks. Then came the unexpected turning point. During a daytime family rehabilitation celebration, Ren wanted to dance again. This time, she did not ask Callum first. She stood beside her wheelchair and looked at her mother. Celeste understood. Ren wanted her mother to dance with her. Celeste began crying before she even reached her daughter. She took Ren's hand. Together, they took one step. Then another. Celeste stumbled. Ren laughed. And for the first time in years, Celeste laughed too. Across the room, Callum watched them with tears in his eyes. Maren stood beside him, proudly holding the little wooden star she had painted months earlier. But Celeste still carried one secret. She had once blamed herself for Ren's disability. Years earlier, after Ren's diagnosis, Celeste had become obsessed with finding someone to blame. Doctors, circumstances, herself. She had built her fortune even faster because money gave her the illusion of control. If she could buy the best doctors, the best equipment, the best specialists, maybe she could undo what had happened. She finally confessed this to Callum during a quiet afternoon walk outside the rehabilitation center. Callum listened. Then he told her about his own guilt. After leaving the military, he had carried the memory of a teammate he could not save. For years, he believed that surviving meant he had failed someone else. He had become a father while still carrying that guilt, and it had taken Maren's simple question one afternoon to make him understand that being alive was not a punishment. It was a responsibility. Celeste cried. Not because the pain disappeared. Because she finally understood she did not have to carry it alone. Their relationship changed slowly, naturally. There were no grand declarations or instant transformations. There were lunches after therapy, walks through the gardens, shared laughter when Ren and Maren argued over which music should play, and quiet moments when Celeste realized that she no longer felt the need to control every second of her daughter's life. Callum never tried to replace Ren's father. He simply became someone Ren trusted. And gradually, he became someone Celeste trusted too. Months later, the rehabilitation center held another daytime charity celebration. This time, Ren arrived without hiding behind her wheelchair. She still needed assistance, and she still had difficult days, but she had learned that difficulty was not the same thing as defeat. When the music began, Ren stood. Callum walked toward her. But before he could offer his hand, Celeste stepped forward. She smiled through tears. This time, the three of them danced together. Ren in the middle. Her mother on one side. The former Navy SEAL on the other. The billionaire who once believed money could protect her daughter from every heartbreak finally understood that love was not about building walls high enough to keep pain out. It was about teaching someone that even when pain came, they would never have to face it alone. Ren eventually became a passionate advocate for accessible dance programs for children with disabilities. Maren became her closest friend. Callum continued serving his community, not with a uniform or weapons, but with patience, courage, and compassion. And Celeste changed her greatest philanthropic foundation from a program focused solely on medical treatment into one dedicated to giving disabled children opportunities to experience music, friendship, sports, art, and ordinary childhood joy. Years later, people would still talk about the afternoon a little girl asked a stranger to dance. They would remember the billionaire mother who froze. They would remember the former Navy SEAL who knelt instead of staring. But Ren remembered something simpler. She remembered the moment someone looked at her and saw a girl before they saw a disability. She remembered that her mother finally stopped trying to protect her from life and started helping her live it. And she remembered the first step. Not because it was perfect. Because it was hers. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. And before you leave, tell us in the comments what you believe the first dance truly meant for Ren. Was it about courage, freedom, forgiveness, or simply being seen for who she really was? Sometimes one small act of kindness can change the direction of an entire life. Sometimes the person who reaches out a hand does not save us by carrying us. They save us by reminding us that we are strong enough to take the next step ourselves. And sometimes the greatest second chance is not the chance to become who we were before the pain, but the chance to discover who we can become because we survived it.